The Buffalo Sabres are set to return to the NHL playoffs after more than a decade of misery. To mark the team's return to the playoffs, let's look back at the last time the Buffalo Sabres won a playoff series. To do that, we have to travel back in time to the 2007 Eastern Conference Semifinals. The Sabres are taking on the New York Rangers in a best-of-7 series, with the winner earning a spot in the Eastern Conference Final. The Sabres entered the playoffs with their best regular season in team history, amassing 53 wins and 113 points, good for the league's best record and the President's Trophy. The team was led by a mixture of veterans like Chris Drury and Daniel Briere, and was joined by young stars like Thomas Vanek and Ryan Miller. From the start of the season, it was thought that this could be the Sabres' year. The team narrowly missed the Stanley Cup final the year before, losing to the Carolina Hurricanes in 7 games in the Eastern Conference Final. With the loss to the Hurricanes fresh in their mind to start the 06-07 season, the Sabres used that as motivation, tying the NHL record by winning their first 10 games of the season. The team was well on their way to making a deep playoff run. Looking downstate to New York City, the Rangers finished the season with 94 points, good for the 6th seed in the Eastern Conference. The Rangers had a veteran presence at forward, with Jaromir Jagr, Michael Nylander, and Brendan Shanahan, with the young Henrik Lundqvist anchoring the Rangers between the pipes. Both teams had the talent to make a run at the Stanley Cup. As the conference's top seed, the Sabres opened up the playoffs against the upstart New York Islanders. Despite dropping Game 2 at home, the Sabres would win both games on Long Island to set up a potential series-clinching Game 5 in Buffalo. The Sabres stormed out to a 4-1 lead, but the Islanders wouldn't go quietly. The team scored 3 goals in the third to put the pressure on the Sabres. New York would have one last chance to tie the game in the final seconds. Miroslav Shatan would get in behind the Sabres' defense for a clear look on goal, but Miller made a sprawling desperation save to keep the puck out of the net. The Sabres were on to the next round. Meanwhile, the Rangers had perhaps the biggest surprise of the first round, upsetting the 3 seed in the East, the Atlanta Thrashers. The Rangers didn't just upset the Thrashers, they swept them, which was the only sweep in the NHL during the whole playoffs that year. The stage was set for the Battle of New York City versus Western New York. Game 1 was set in Buffalo and was scoreless until the second period. That's when the Sabres' offense came to life, with 2 goals by Vanek and 1 by Alesh Kotelik to take a 3-0 lead into the third period. The Rangers would get on the board thanks to Marcel Hossa halfway through the third, but the Sabres would answer with a goal from Jason Pominville. Each team would also get a goal in the final minute of the game, as it finished 5-2 to give the Sabres the early series lead. Game 2 would be much more competitive and was a back-and-forth affair. The teams traded goals in the first period, as Martin Straka gave the Rangers an early lead. But less than a minute later, Sabres defenseman Brian Campbell would answer for the Sabres. The second period was scoreless for nearly its entirety, until with less than 2 minutes to go, Paul Mara would give the Rangers the lead. They were 20 minutes away from taking a tied series back to Manhattan. That lead would only last seconds into the third period, as Drury would tie the game for the Sabres. Halfway through the period, Vanek would give the Sabres the lead after a beautiful no-look pass from Drew Stafford. That would be all the offense the Sabres would need, as Miller stopped 31 of 33 shots to give the Sabres a 2-0 series lead heading downstate. Game 3 would be a showdown between 2 of the game's best between the pipes. Miller and Lundqvist were both stellar, each showing the ability to carry their team to a potential Stanley Cup. After a scoreless first period, the Rangers broke the deadlock with one of the greats getting the home team on the board. Jagr got the Rangers on the board seconds into the period, finding a loose puck in the crease to give New York the lead. The score remained the same until with just under 8 minutes left in the third period, Danny Briere ripped a slap shot inside the left circle to score a power play goal, tying the game for the Sabres. Overtime would be needed to determine a winner in Game 3. Despite chances for both teams in overtime, the game was headed for a second overtime period and appeared headed to a third. However, Michael Roosevelt ripped a slap shot from the point that went off the iron into the back of the net to win the game for the Rangers. Game 4 would mark a pivotal point in the series. Could the Rangers tie the series, or would the Sabres take a commanding 3-1 series lead back to Buffalo? The game would be another low-scoring affair, as both goaltenders made great saves, keeping the game scoreless through the first period. Just as he had in Game 3, Jágr broke the deadlock just seconds into the period, as a perfect deflection beat Miller to give the Rangers a 1-0 lead. In the third period, after a Buffalo turnover, a loose puck would find its way to Shanahan, who was all alone in front, and buried home the shot to double the Rangers' advantage. Just seconds later, however, Kotelik would bury a one-timer in front to cut the Rangers' lead in half. That would be as close as the Sabres got, however, as the team couldn't beat Lundqvist again, and the series was tied after 4 games. Game 5 was set to determine who would take control of the series. Would it be the Sabres or Rangers who would take a series lead back to New York City? The theme of the past 2 games continued, as another low-scoring affair was underway, and neither team found the back of the net after 2 periods. The first goal of the game was finally scored when, after video review, it was clearly determined that Straka beat Miller blocker side to give the Rangers a 1-0 lead with just minutes remaining. Buffalo was now faced with the possibility of trailing in a playoff series for the first time this season. The clock ticked down to the final seconds, and the Sabres still hadn't found the back of the net. With just seconds remaining, they had one last chance and needed a hero to rise to tie the game. The stage was set for this iconic moment.
Drury spun it out in front. There's the shot. Blocked in front. Rebound. Goal!
Just as it looked like the game would slip away, Buffalo gained control of the puck in the dying seconds, and after an initial shot was stopped, the puck found its way to the stick of Drury, who fired the puck home with 7.7 seconds left in the third period to tie the game for the Sabres. We are headed for our second overtime game this series. After a failed Rangers power play, the Sabres would get a power play of their own, and it wouldn't take long for them to convert, and with it, another iconic moment.
But Roy wins the draw. Pominville smoked it wide of the net. Kalinin keeping it in. Kalinin drops it back. Held in there. Finnegan off with a shot.
Only seconds into the power play, Pominville would rip a slap shot that would miss the net, but then the puck would find its way to Max Afinogenov, who would rip another slap shot that this time would beat Lundqvist's 5-hole, winning the game for Buffalo. They now needed just one more win for a return trip to the Eastern Conference Final. For all the great goaltending and defense that was a part of games 1 through 5, that was thrown out the window, and game 6 was all about the offense. On the verge of elimination, Michael Nylander struck first with just minutes left in the first to give the Rangers an early 1-0 lead as we head to the first intermission. Knowing they could close out the series with a win, the Sabres came out hot to start the second period, scoring twice in the first 3 minutes as Dmitry Kalinin ripped a shot beating Lundqvist before Pominville finished home a one-timer at the hash marks to give Buffalo the lead. With their season on the line, the Rangers would not go quietly, as Mara scored on the power play to tie the game. Still in the second period, the Sabres would get the lead back, as Jochen Hesch would get his first goal of the playoffs, firing one far side. Before the end of the period, the Sabres would tack on to their lead, as the Game 5 hero Drury would finish a scramble in front for a power play goal. The Sabres were now 20 minutes away from the Eastern Conference Final. This, however, wasn't the first playoff series for Jágr, and he wasn't ready to go home. Jágr would finish a power play goal to get the Rangers within 1. However, their comeback wasn't to be, as Hesch would strike again, this time on a tip-in from a Briere shot to restore the Sabres' 2-goal lead. The Rangers would give themselves a fighting chance, as Nylander would score with just under 3 minutes left. That was as close as the Rangers could get as the clock would run out on the game and their season. With that, the Buffalo Sabres were headed for a return trip to the Eastern Conference Final. Their opponent in the final, a matchup with one of their biggest rivals, the Ottawa Senators. What would happen in that series? Well, that's a story for another time.